My name is Frank, and what happened to me in the summer of 2019 still keeps me up at night. I'm sharing this because I need people to know that some places are just wrong, and the Whispering Pines Forest in Northern California is one of them. I was 23, fresh out of college, and obsessed with solo camping. There was something about being alone in nature that made me feel alive, you know? I'd read about Whispering Pines on some obscure hiking forum. The post said it was untouched and peaceful. What the post didn't mention were the 7 missing persons cases linked to that forest over the past 15 years. I arrived on a Friday afternoon in late August. The trailhead was empty, no other cars, no signs of recent visitors. Just an old wooden marker half covered in moss that read, Whispering Pines, 8 miles. The moment I stepped onto that trail, the temperature dropped at least 10 degrees. But I told myself it was just the tree cover. The hiking was unsettling. The forest was too quiet. No birds, no insects, just the sound of my boots crunching on dead leaves and my own breathing. About 3 miles in, I started hearing it. A faint whispering, like dozens of voices talking at once, but too low to make out any words. I stopped walking. The whispering stopped. I started again. It started again. By the time I reached my campsite, a small clearing beside a dried-up creek bed, it was almost dusk. I set up my tent quickly, my hand shaking for reasons I couldn't explain. That's when I noticed the trees. Every single pine tree surrounding the clearing had symbols carved into the bark. Not random scratches, deliberate symbols. Circles with lines through them. Spirals. And in the center of each one, names. I ran my flashlight over the closest tree. Sarah M., 2007. Another tree. David K., 2012. My blood went cold. These were the missing people. I should have left. God, I should have run back to my car right then. But it was getting dark, and the trail back was treacherous. I convinced myself I'd leave at first light. I built a fire, ate a can of cold beans, and tried to ignore the whispering that had started up again, louder now, coming from every direction. Around midnight, I woke up to the sound of footsteps circling my tent. Slow, deliberate footsteps. I held my breath, gripping my knife. Then a voice, clear as day, whispered right outside the tent fabric. "Frank, we've been waiting for you." My blood turned to ice. How'd it know my name? The footsteps stopped. I waited, heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Then I heard it, my own voice, coming from outside the tent. It was me, saying, "Help me, please help me," over and over in this desperate, broken tone. But I was inside the tent. I wasn't speaking. I unzipped the tent just a crack and looked out. Standing at the edge of my campsite, illuminated by the dying embers of my fire, was me, an exact copy of me, staring back with hollow black eyes. Its mouth was moving, making those pleas for help, but the voice was all wrong, layered, echoing, like dozens of people speaking in unison. It started walking toward my tent. I didn't think, I just ran. I burst out the back of the tent and sprinted into the forest, branches tearing at my face and arms. Behind me, I could hear multiple sets of footsteps now, and the voices, so many voices, all calling my name in that horrible layered tone. I ran for what felt like hours, completely lost, until I stumbled onto what looked like the dried creek bed near my campsite. But something was different. In the moonlight, I could see the ground wasn't dirt. It was covered in photographs, hundreds of them, old Polaroids and printed photos of people in the forest, camping, hiking, smiling, and in every single photo, standing in the background, partially hidden behind trees, was a figure in dark clothing with no face. I picked up one photo. It was dated 3 weeks ago. and in the background, barely visible, was me, setting up my tent in that clearing. But I'd only arrived today. That's when I understood. The forest doesn't just take people. It's been watching them, planning, and somehow, I'd been marked long before I ever decided to come here. I don't remember how I found my way back to the trailhead. I just remember running until my lungs burned and collapsed at my car as the sun was rising. My tent, my gear, I left everything. I drove straight home and didn't stop for 12 hours. 2 months later, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a Polaroid of me, asleep in my apartment bedroom. And in the corner of the room, in the shadows, that faceless figure. On the back, written in shaky handwriting, "You can't leave Whispering Pines. It follows you home." I moved 3 times last year. It doesn't matter. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear the whispering. And I know, I'm not alone anymore. My name is Amanda, and I'm 31 years old. What I'm about to tell you happened when I was 16, but I've never spoken about it until now. Not to my parents, not to therapists, not to anyone, because who would believe me? It was October 2008, and I was camping with my best friend Rachel and her family in Blackwood Forest in Oregon. Rachel's dad was a park ranger, so we got to camp in restricted areas most people never saw. He said it was safe, that the do not enter signs were just to protect the ecosystem. He was wrong. We set up camp near an area called Hollow Point, a circular clearing surrounded by massive old-growth trees. Rachel's parents took the large tent, and she and I got our own smaller one about 20 feet away. That first night was perfect. We roasted marshmallows, told ghost stories, fell asleep giggling about boys from school. Around 2 in the morning, I woke up to singing. Children's voices, high and sweet, singing Ring Around the Rosie. I thought I was dreaming until Rachel shook me awake, her face pale in the moonlight streaming through the tent. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. We listened. The singing was getting closer. I unzipped the tent and looked out. What I saw made my stomach drop. In the clearing, illuminated by the full moon, were about 12 children holding hands in a circle, dancing and singing. They wore old-fashioned clothing, dresses and shorts that looked like they were from the 1950s or earlier. Maybe it's another camping group? Rachel suggested, but her voice was shaking. The children stopped singing. In perfect unison, they all turned their heads to look at our tent and smiled. These wide, two big smiles that didn't look right on their faces. Then they started walking toward us, still holding hands, still smiling. I zipped the tent shut, and Rachel and I scrambled to wake her parents. But when we got to their tent, it was empty. Sleeping bags still warm, flashlights still on, but completely empty. We were alone. The children's voices started up again, but now they were singing a different song, one I'd never heard before. The lyrics made my skin crawl. "Come and play, come and stay. In the forest we will lay. Never leave, never grow. In the earth below, below, below." Rachel grabbed my hand. "We need to get to the car." We ran. The forest was pitch black except for our flashlights, and behind us, we could hear the patter of small feet running, and that singing, that awful singing, getting louder. Branches seemed to grab at us. Roots appeared out of nowhere to trip us. It was like the forest itself was trying to stop us. We were almost to the parking area when Rachel screamed. I turned and saw one of the children standing directly in front of her. Up close, I could see that its eyes were completely black, and its skin had a gray, waxy quality. It reached out a small hand toward Rachel. "Want to join our game?" it asked in a sweet, innocent voice. "We've been playing for so long. We need new friends." I pulled Rachel away, and we ran the last 100 yards to the car. I fumbled with the keys, my hand shaking so badly I could barely get the door open. The children were emerging from the forest now, 12 of them in a line, walking toward us with that same horrible smile. We jumped in the car, and I gunned the engine, speeding down the dirt road without even turning on the headlights. In the rearview mirror, I watched the children standing in the middle of the road, waving goodbye. Rachel's parents turned up 3 days later. They claimed they'd gone for an early morning hike and gotten lost. But here's the thing. They didn't remember anything after going to sleep that first night. And Rachel's dad, the park ranger who'd been working in those forests for 20 years, refused to ever go back. He transferred to a different district within a week. I did some research later. Hollow Point used to be the site of a children's summer camp in 1952. One night, 12 children snuck out of their cabins to play in the forest. None of them were ever found. The camp closed down, and the area was eventually absorbed into the national forest. But here's what keeps me up at night. Last month, I was scrolling through Facebook and saw that Rachel had posted a camping trip photo. She was in a forest, smiling at the camera, and there, in the background, barely visible between the trees, were small figures holding hands in a circle. I called her immediately, but her phone was disconnected. Her profile was deleted the next day. I haven't heard from her since. Sometimes, late at night, I swear I can hear children singing outside my window. And I wonder, is Rachel playing a game now? My name is Derek, and I'm a hunter. Or at least I was. After what happened in the Pinewood Forest last November, I sold all my guns and haven't set foot in the woods since. Some things aren't meant to be hunted, and some things hunt back. November 2023. I'd been planning this trip for months, a solo deer hunting expedition in Pinewood Forest, a massive stretch of wilderness in Montana. I'm an experienced hunter, done it since I was 12 with my dad. I know the woods. I know how to track. I know how to survive. At least, that's what I thought. I set up camp at a valley about 6 miles from the nearest road. Prime deer territory, or so the locals said. What they didn't tell me was that 3 hunters had disappeared in this exact area over the past 2 years. I found that out later. Much later. The first 2 days were normal. I tracked deer, saw some beautiful elk, didn't get a clean shot. By the 3rd day, I started noticing something weird. Everywhere I went, I'd find fresh boot prints in the mud. Size 11, same as mine. Same tread pattern, following the same path I'd taken. At first, I thought maybe another hunter was in the area, copying my route. But the prints were too perfect, too identical. On the 4th night, I woke up to the sound of my own voice calling from outside the tent. Derek, over here. I got a 12-pointer. I sat up, confused. The voice was mine, but I was in the tent. I grabbed my pistol and slowly unzipped the flap. Standing about 30 yards away, illuminated by moonlight, was a figure in hunting gear identical to mine. Same jacket, same hat, same rifle. It was facing away from me, looking into the trees. "Hey," I shouted. "Who are you?" The figure slowly turned around, and my heart stopped. It was me, exact replica, but its face was wrong. The features were mine, but the eyes were dead, empty, like looking at a mask made of my own skin. "I'm you," it said in my voice. "I'm what the forest makes when it needs to fill a space. 3 days ago, you should have died on the trail, stepped on a weak branch over a ravine, but you didn't. So now there are 2 of us. The forest doesn't like imbalance." I raised my pistol, hand shaking. "Stay back." It smiled, this horrible, empty smile. "You can't kill me, Derek. I'm you. We share the same fate now. One of us has to die before you leave this forest. That's the rule. That's always been the rule." It started walking toward me, and I fired. The bullet hit it square in the chest, and it stumbled back. But then it laughed. Just stood up and laughed, blood pouring from the wound. See, same fate. You just shot yourself. I looked down. My chest was bleeding. Same spot, same wound. The pain hit me like a sledgehammer, and I collapsed. When I woke up, it was dawn, and I was lying in the dirt outside my tent. My chest had a scar, but no wound, like it had healed overnight. My doppelganger was gone, but I found a note pinned to my tent. One of us by nightfall. The forest decides. I packed up my camp in a panic and started hiking back to my truck. Every step of the way, I saw it, my double, watching me from between trees, always just out of clear sight. Sometimes ahead of me, sometimes behind. Sometimes I'd see two of them, then three, like the forest was making copies, trying to figure out which one was real. By the time I reached the trailhead, the sun was setting. I could see my truck in the parking area. I ran for it, but when I got there, I froze. Someone was already sitting in the driver's seat. Me. It looked at me through the window, started the engine, and drove away. I fell to my knees, screaming. That's when a park ranger found me. She said I'd been missing for 8 days, not 4. They'd been searching for me. She drove me to the hospital. Here's the thing that haunts me. When I got home, my wife said I'd been back for 3 days already, that I'd come home early from the trip, said I didn't get anything, and had been acting weird, distant, cold. She filed for divorce 2 weeks later, said I wasn't the man she married, that I'd changed. Sometimes I wonder, did I make it out? Or is the real Derek still in that forest, and I'm the copy that the forest let go? I look in the mirror and can't tell anymore. My reflection looks right, but something's missing. Something that makes you human. If you're reading this, and you see me on the street, I don't know if I'm the real Derek, and that terrifies me more than anything I saw in those woods. My name is Sophie, and I'm 28 years old. I'm a botanical researcher, which means I spend a lot of time in forests studying plant life. But after what I discovered in Ashmore Forest last spring, I've considered changing careers entirely. In April 2024, my research team was hired to survey Ashmore Forest in northern Washington for a conservation project. It's an old-growth forest, mostly untouched, with some tree specimens over 800 years old. Beautiful place. Serene. Or so we thought. We split into pairs to cover more ground. I was partnered with my colleague James, and we were assigned the eastern quadrant, the deepest, most remote section. Our job was to catalog tree species, take soil samples, document any unusual flora. Standard stuff. About 4 hours into our hike, we came across something that wasn't on any of our maps. A grove of trees in a perfect circle, maybe 30 trees total, all the same species, black oak, which shouldn't even exist in this region. The trees were dead, but still standing, their branches twisted into these horrible, grasping shapes. In the center of the circle was a stone well, ancient-looking, covered in moss. James wanted to leave, said the place gave him a bad feeling, but I was curious. I'm a scientist. I don't believe in bad vibes. That's what I told him, at least. I approached the well and looked down. It was deep. I couldn't see the bottom, but I could hear something. Whispering. Dozens of voices overlapping, all saying the same thing. Feed the grove. Feed the grove. Did you hear that? I asked James. He shook his head, backing away. Sophie, we need to leave. Now. That's when we noticed the bones. Scattered around the base of each tree were small bones. At first, I thought they were animal remains, deer, maybe rabbits. But then I saw a human skull, half buried in the leaves. Then another, and another. James grabbed my arm. We're leaving. Now. But I couldn't move. I was staring at the trees, and I realized something horrifying. The branches weren't twisted randomly. They were shaped like hands. Dozens of wooden hands, all reaching toward the well. We started walking back the way we came, but the forest had changed. The path was gone. Trees that weren't there before now blocked our way. We were going in circles, always ending up back at that grove, that well. By the third time we ended up back there, the sun was setting, and the trees, they'd moved. They were closer to the well now, and closer to each other, tightening the circle. James lost it. He ran into the forest, screaming. I called after him, but he was gone. I was alone. That's when I heard my name being called from the well. My own voice, echoing up from the darkness. Sophie, help me. I'm stuck down here, please. I knew it wasn't really me, but God help me. I looked over the edge, and I saw faces, hundreds of them, pressed against the stone walls, all looking up at me with hollow eyes. Some looked fresh, others were just skulls, and at the very bottom I saw James. He was climbing up the walls, moving wrong, like his joints were broken. I ran. Didn't matter which direction, I just ran. Branches tore at my clothes and skin. The whispering followed me, getting louder. Feed the grove. Feed the grove. I don't know how long I ran. Hours maybe. But eventually, I stumbled onto a logging road and flagged down a truck. The driver took me to the ranger station. They sent out a search party for James. They found him 3 days later. He was standing in the center of that grove, perfectly still, covered in dirt and leaves. When they approached him, he turned and smiled. His eyes were completely white. The grove is fed, he said. Then he collapsed. James is in a psychiatric facility now. He doesn't speak, doesn't eat unless forced, just stares out the window at the trees. The doctors say it's catatonia brought on by trauma, but I know better. Last week, I visited him. When I walked into his room, he turned his head, the first movement he'd made in months. He smiled at me with those dead, white eyes and whispered, "Your turn soon, Sophie. The grove is still hungry. It knows where you sleep." I haven't been able to sleep since. And yesterday, I woke up to find a pile of soil on my doorstep. When I had it tested, it matched the soil from that grove. Something followed me home. Something wants me to go back. And the worst part, sometimes, late at night, I feel compelled to do exactly that. My name is Tyler, and I'm 17 years old. What happened to me and my friends last summer in Crowley Forest destroyed our lives. 2 of us made it out. 3 didn't. And I'm not sure if making it out is the right way to describe it. It was supposed to be an epic end-of-summer camping trip before senior year. 5 of us, me, my girlfriend Emma, and our friends Jake, Melissa, and Chris. We'd heard about Crowley Forest from some kids at school. Supposedly, there was an abandoned lookout tower deep in the woods that had this incredible view. Perfect for Instagram, you know? We hiked in on a Saturday morning, August 2024. The trail was overgrown, barely visible, but we followed the GPS coordinates we'd found online. About 3 miles in, Chris noticed something weird. Is it just me, or does it feel like we're being watched? We all laughed it off, but he was right. The entire hike, I had this crawling sensation on the back of my neck, like eyes on us. Constantly. We found the lookout tower around 2 p.m. It was more decrepit than we expected. Rust-covered metal, broken stairs, warning signs about structural instability. But the view from the top was insane. You could see the entire forest stretching out for miles. That's when Jake noticed them. He had binoculars, scanning the tree line, and he suddenly went quiet. Guys, there are people standing in the forest. Just standing there, not moving. We all took turns looking. He was right. Scattered throughout the trees. maybe 20 or 30 figures, all facing toward the tower. They were too far away to see details, but they were definitely human-shaped, and they weren't moving at all, just standing, staring. Maybe they're other hikers? Emma suggested, but her voice was shaking. We decided to set up camp at the base of the tower. Safety in numbers, right? As the sun set, Melissa started counting the figures in the trees. She said there were more now, at least 50, and they'd moved closer. Around midnight, we were sitting around the campfire when we heard it, a voice calling from the forest. "Help! Please, someone help me." Jake stood up. "Someone's in trouble. We have to." "No." Chris grabbed his arm. "That's not real. Listen to it." We listened. The voice was calling for help, but it was repeating the exact same phrase over and over, with the exact same inflection. Like a recording, like something mimicking human speech, but not quite getting it right. Then we heard Emma's voice calling from the woods. "Tyler, where are you? I'm lost." We all turned. Emma was sitting right next to me, her face white with terror. "That's not me," she whispered. The voice called again, closer now. "Tyler, please. It's dark and I'm scared." Jake grabbed his flashlight and pointed it into the trees. That's when we saw them up close. The figures. They looked human at first glance, but wrong. Their movements were too stiff, their limbs bent at impossible angles, and their faces, they didn't have features. Just smooth, blank skin where eyes and mouth should be. But they were mimicking our voices perfectly. We ran, all 5 of us, running blind through the forest, in complete darkness. Behind us, we could hear dozens of our own voices calling out, overlapping, creating this horrible chorus. "Help us. Wait, where are you going?" I lost sight of the others in the chaos. One second Emma was holding my hand. The next I was alone. I kept running until I couldn't breathe, then collapsed behind a fallen log. That's where I found Chris. He was hiding, his shirt torn, bleeding from scratches on his face. "Where are the others?" I asked. "I don't know. We got separated." We waited there until dawn. As the sun came up, the voices stopped. We carefully made our way back to where we thought the campsite was. We found Jake and Melissa. They were standing back to back in a small clearing, completely still, staring at nothing. "Jake," Chris ran toward them. "Melissa, thank God you're..." That's when they turned around. Their faces were blank, smooth, no eyes, no mouths, just skin. The mimics had taken them, and when they opened their mouths, which appeared like tears and skin, they spoke in perfect unison. The forest keeps what wanders too deep. They're part of us now. The watching woods is always watching, always hungry. Chris and I ran. We ran until we hit a road, flagged down a car, and were taken to the police. They searched for weeks, found our campsite, found Jake and Melissa's phones. Never found Jake and Melissa. Never found Emma. The case is still open. But here's what really haunts me. Last week, I got a DM on Instagram. It was from Emma's account. Just one message. "Still here. Still watching. You should come back. The woods miss you." The message included a photo. Emma, Jake, and Melissa standing in the forest. Blank faces staring at the camera. And behind them, barely visible, hundreds more figures, all watching. Chris changed his number and moved to another state. He won't talk to me. I don't blame him, because sometimes, late at night, I hear Emma's voice calling my name from outside my window. And the worst part? A small part of me wants to answer, wants to go back. The watching woods doesn't just take you. It makes you part of it. And I think part of me is already there.